You're watching Cable 2.
Hello, and welcome to the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools Open Book Podcast Series. Today, our session will be focused on the return of our high school students to in-person learning and other supports that will ensure their success during this school year. With me today, I have two outstanding leaders. I have the principal of Reynolds High School, Leslie Alexander, and I have our lead school counselor of high schools, Kenya Rocker. Thank you both so much for joining me today.
For having us.
Thank you.
So I'm going to be asking you some questions about the return of our high school students, because as we know, last week we started the return of ninth graders to in-person learning. So my first question is going to go to Leslie. So Leslie, so far, I think, what's today, Tuesday, you've had 3 groups of ninth graders return to your school.
Exactly.
In our four cohort model. Can you tell me how that's been going so far? Describe a little bit about what our students are experiencing at this time.
So it's been really nice to have just the ninth graders back. They get a little bit of special attention, and so they don't know the school at all. So it's been good to just be able to have a little one-on-one time with them, so that we can show them around, show them where things are. I think it's really eased their nerves to know that they're the only ones on campus. And so they get all of our attention. And it's been great. It's helped us to be able to sort of see which processes we have in place that work and which ones we might need to revamp with a smaller group.
Absolutely. Can you tell a little bit about how many students you have had on campus so far?
Absolutely. So for cohort 1, we were supposed to have 78 students. We had 72. Cohort 2, we had 78.
Okay.
So we're really happy with that. It seems like, the kids that said they were going to come are coming. We've been getting some calls about people who now want to have a cohort.
Okay.
So that's good news.
Okay, that is very good.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. And so we know because of our cohorts, and I remember when we designed our cohorts, it was because of, in our larger schools, they would be in 4 cohorts because of numbers and because of our social distancing requirements in our classrooms. And so with that, we know that our numbers, that basically also parents had the choice to. So not every student chose to come back as well. With that said, between the cohorts and between choices of students staying remote, I know that we still have a lot of remote learners. So even a student that might be on campus 2 days a week, another 2 days and into the next week, they're going to be learning remotely from their homes. So this next question is for Kenya. Can you describe a little bit about how school counselors are supporting students that could potentially be struggling with not being in school more often in person? What are some ways that they are checking in? And this can be school counselors or other staff that are chipping in right now.
Absolutely. So our school counselors, they always try to keep lines of communication open. That's very important. We felt it was very important for our school counselors to have Canvas pages. We know our students are used to logging on to their classes that way. So our students, they know they can go to their Canvas page to access school counselors. There is also student services websites that students can go to. Our counseling offices have employed virtual bookings for one-on-one appointments. So that's very important for our students. Our counselors also work closely with our teachers and other staff to say, if you are working with students, you notice something different perhaps in their writing, you notice they are speaking of isolation or anxiety, of things of that nature. We also have teachers who will speak with our counselors, and our counselors will reach out to those students. We also in the counseling offices try to have things like mindfulness clubs. Some offices have support groups, social emotional support groups. So there's a variety of things going on in the school system so that students know counselors are there for them.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I didn't even realize some of those things, like the mindfulness groups and some of the peer groups bringing kids together that might need some peer interaction. And so most of those things are happening right now virtually, but it may be that groups are scheduled separate to do these special kinds of activities with kids?
Absolutely. And for those students on campus, of course, our counselors will work with them in social distancing. They have rooms marked off where they can meet with students if they need to meet with them on campus, so that they are making sure they are serving the needs of students in the building and both virtually. And our counselors are usually involved in things like screenings as well. So they are watching students as they are coming in to see how they are working with the transition. They will be watching to see how they are transitioning back.
That's great. Yes, as I've been visiting schools, and especially high schools, since that's what this segment's about, I see our high schools working our high school counselors working very hard. So did you want to add anything, Leslie, about a specific example of this kind of check-in or something that your counselors are doing to really support their students?
Yeah, it's a team effort at this point, really. This is a very busy season for counselors because they're registering students, and our counselors at Reynolds are used to meeting face-to-face with every student, and so this has been a unique situation for them. So we're working together as a team. We sent out to our families, to 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, just a little survey saying, how are you doing? I'm great, I'm okay, or I'm not so good, please give me a call, kind of thing. And, are you struggling academically, socially, or emotionally? And we had a pretty good response to that. About 200 kids responded to that. And so we're working with our counselors and our social worker to copy and paste those names of students who need a call. I spoke to 3 this morning before I came, just so they know somebody's there if they need them. And so our guidance counselors and our social worker and our administrative group, we're kind of just teaming it together to make sure those kids get reached if they need to be reached.
Yeah, I am really excited to hear this, because that one-on-one connection that you and others are making to your students. I know some of our parents have said that their students are struggling, and it's for different reasons. I mean, some of it's academic, but others are about the isolation or about other things. Some are doing fine. We know that as well. Some parents have said their kids are doing fine, but there are many that need that extra attention, and to hear how it's being addressed in schools makes me very, very happy. I'm glad to hear that. I love the idea of the survey. I love that you yourself was on the phone with 3 students this morning. It just shows the extra touch that's being taken. So I'm very excited about that. So what part of high school, part of the excitement of high school is just so many special moments that happen. I mean, all of us can think back to our high school years, or you live it every day, and so do you. Or so did you, at a school site. Just the exciting moments from, pep assemblies to, just that exciting morning show that builds that team spirit, to athletic events, to arts events, to just those moments, things that kids really look forward to when they get into high school. Clubs, service clubs, everything, academic clubs. Can you talk a little bit about how we are trying to have kids still be able to participate in some of those things? Are they virtual? Are they in person? How are we responding to those things?
So it's a mixture. If they're involved in athletics, then they can participate within the confinements that we have. Only certain number of fans can come, that type of thing. And so our athletes who are in season are able to be involved. Our cheerleaders and our dancing boots, they can practice socially distanced. Where we're really trying to reach out now are our clubs. We have about 42 clubs, so we have quite a few. And we're using this Wednesday and next Wednesday as kind of trying to get kids to come online and be a part of those Zoom calls with their club, because they're going to be coming back soon. And so really trying to tap into that excitement of, okay, so we're Zooming right now, but what can we do in 2 weeks? And so what will that look like? And just trying to really get the kids to buy into the fact that, we are going to be in person soon, and let's think about how to make that best. And so our assistant principals have been reaching out, our teachers who lead clubs. And so that's our push right now with those 10th through 12th graders, is just to make sure they know that they are a part. We miss you. Our 9th graders are here, but we're thinking about you, and let's all get excited about it's almost time to be together again.
Absolutely. I'm excited about hearing that the clubs will come back to life, because that is a big part of high school and being involved in schools, because there's probably something for everyone in one of these clubs. And so, and then also the arts. I know that when I was at your school a few weeks ago, I got to meet your band director, who was amazing. But the band is back, and any other arts groups that have started back up or are going to be starting back up?
Yes. So they're all doing their own things in the way that they can. Like, we have a very strong orchestra program, and I've dropped into their Zoom classes, and it's so neat to see them because they're all playing in their little boxes, and they learn how to make that work together to come up with a product. And so our teachers have just been really creative about ways that they can, look at what can we do, not what can't we do.
Yes,
to see ways that we can move forward with that. So we got our plays getting ready to start, the practicing for our play, our a cappella group. So everybody's ready.
That's great.
Yeah.
It definitely has been a lesson in how to think out of the box and be creative for teachers. I've seen it. There are so many things, though, that teachers have done amazing work. Hands-on is they know it's going to be better, but they've tried to think outside the box of how to make things happen as good as they can in a virtual space. But you're right that there have been some musical masterpieces that have come out of virtual, as we've seen it in our own district this school year. Do you have any other ideas to add that were not covered, that as you work with our counselors across all the high schools, that you've heard of any clubs or things and how they're starting back up?
Well, I think it's important to know that there are events. Our schools are going out of their way to still have events like Senior Day, where seniors may have that chance to put on the cap and gown and come in and take their cap and gown pictures, things like that. High school staff glory in those moments for students as well. So they are always trying to think out of the box to see how can we make this happen for students. So it's very important for students and parents to make sure they are connected. Most of the web pages will have senior information and things of that nature. I also want to mention, too, we are not leaving out our rising ninth graders. We are at the point of the year where we are inviting our eighth grade students to freshman open houses. And so that information is out there as well. And so most schools they will be virtual, of course, but some schools will have a live component as well. And so those are things we want to pull them in now and let them know that they will be welcome as well.
That's good. That's very good to know. And you mentioned resources and things for families. We're going to get into that in a minute, but I was wondering, do you have any advice for parents that, all parents want is for their kids to be happy, and they want what's best for their kids, and those that had seniors that graduated last year and things were so different, they understand this. Those that have seniors that have not even been on campus this year, unless they are participating in one of these activities that have been back, I know that they're feeling for their students. The normal way of life of a high school student is not happening as it has in the past. So, do you have any advice for parents on what they can do to help their students with socialization if they're struggling with any academics? Like, any other advice for parents?
I think the biggest thing is to keep the lines of communication open. I think we are all staring at computers all day long. Sometimes we have multiple kids or students at this table, in that room. Parents are still working from home many times. And so it's easy to close down that computer, that laptop, and just, eat and go get in the bed. But just to have open lines of communication, to ask your child the same way you would if they were in the building, how was your school day today? Because they are still engaging with classmates, they are engaging with teachers, and they still have things to say about that. And also just, how are things different? How is that different from last year? How is registration going to look different? And just to have that conversation so that students can kind of get out feelings that they are feeling. If they're feeling anxiety about something, they may talk about their self-awareness, where they feel like they are this year, how they feel they performed during remote learning, which may be different for different subjects. So to really keep those lines of communication open, and then to just kind of work on small goals. I think everybody feels overwhelmed. And so if we can pinpoint maybe small goals that students can tackle and just try to pinpoint, because sometimes students will just say, it's all of it. And if you can kind of get a little bit to the root, well, what exactly is going on with English? And maybe just work on English. and then will tackle other classes. But try to work on small goals first, and it's not everything.
Wow, great advice.
Every little piece of control
Yes.
that someone can feel
Yes.
is helpful.
Oh, wow. That is really good advice. I think I could listen to you all day. Really good advice about keeping the open lines of communication. Are there other resources? I know that our website has things. You mentioned some other things. Are there other resources out there that parents or students can go to provide additional support? They can be either community resources or online resources or anything else you can identify?
Absolutely. There are some great apps out there, Calm, Headspace, that some of our counselors are recommending and using with students.
Okay.
There are, and of course, if we feel that students need some form of counseling, consistent counseling, outside counseling, we have a comprehensive list of community agencies that we can refer students to. We also have 5 mental health care providers within the city that our school district works with as well. And so if we urge parents, if they feel like their students are having an issue where they need to speak with someone consistently, please, by all means, contact your school counselor and we can put you in touch with those resources. And again, those Canvas pages, those student services websites, they have lots of resources. One thing that I think remote learning has done for everyone is it's encouraged us to click on some things that maybe we have not before. So most of those websites, Canvas sites, we'll have some resources. We had a wonderful counselor who put together a virtual calming room. It's very comprehensive. Corey Daniel at Mount Tabor, we featured her last week in an article during our
Yes, on the front on the website.
School Counselors Week.
Yes.
Shout out to my school counselors.
Yes.
But it's just a comprehensive where you can just go and click and have some calming strategies, some coping strategies, some breathing techniques, some mindfulness techniques, and it's great for faculty as well. Faculty and parents, we need that as well. Maybe even clips of Tom and Jerry just to escape for a few minutes. All those things are out there, and we really want people to take advantage of those. And I also like to mention we have a wonderful psych services department. Our school psychologists work on lots of resources as well for our parents and students.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much out there, so no one has to struggle alone. There's so many resources that you just described just within our own district, not even going outside of the district.
Absolutely.
So that's amazing. Did you have anything you wanted to add about that?
I was glad you brought up the virtual calming room because we actually use that and that Tabor created, and that's something that I've really seen during this time is how my high school colleagues, how we've collaborated and how everybody's really willing to share whatever resources that they have.
Yes.
We just did 2 ACT preps with our parents and students, and we had 40 plus people attend both sessions, and the vast majority of what we started with, we actually got from Reagan High School because they shared with us. And so it's been really a nice environment where, I think our colleagues are really nobody wants to recreate the wheel, and we all want what's best for kids. So if we've got something, we're sharing it with each other. And I just think that's one thing that'll come out of this pandemic that I think will be better on the other end of it for that.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really glad to hear that those resources are being shared. And I know that, speaking of Mount Tabor, I'm going to have to visit the Calm Room on the virtual Calm
you need
Room.
to.
You did too. It's wonderful.
I will visit that. And then I know that one thing that, and I know many of the high schools are doing this, but is their morning show is hysterical. I mean, it makes me laugh. The kids run the whole thing, the students, and it does make it feel like the school's still in session, like as normal because of how they're reporting the news and the weather. So I really commend our schools for doing everything they can to create this positive environment for students under the challenges that we're facing. So I wanted to shift us a little bit just to seniors right now. I know we've talked about Senior Day, which I'm so glad to hear that we're doing some of those things. And I knew about that, bringing in students to I mean, this is a big year.
Right.
With graduation and then thinking about next steps in life. I know that you all have probably been part of speaking about graduation and speaking about with the graduation committee and with high school principals. And I know nothing's been released yet other than maybe dates that people should hold for graduation, but is there anything, can you shed any light on what we might be thinking about? And before and this is, I know, preliminary, because we'll be sharing specifics with our parents later, but anything we're thinking about for this year?
Yeah, so they sent a survey out, and so we've been asking parents and seniors, how they feel, what they would like to see happen. Last year we just sort of had to make it happen at the last minute.
Yes,
I do think that what we did last year turned out really well. I thought that it was a nice, ceremonies, the drive-bys and the product, the videos that we were able to create from that. That was nice. But the discussion has been, do we want to do that again, or do we want to have an in-person graduation in smaller cohorts? I get the sense that that's where we're leaning toward is the smaller cohorts of graduation. So, for example, Reynolds would have 3 different graduations.
Okay.
Parkland would have two graduations. And so the size of your school may depend on how that rolls out.
Yes.
But that's, I think, where we're leaning, because the kids. My daughter is a senior, so I've actually lived through this with a senior. So, they didn't have junior prom, they didn't have senior prom. They really want something. And so, when we're all about whatever we can do to make that special.
Yes.
And I know schools are thinking about, what we can do. Our PTSA is going to take the 4th quarter to celebrate seniors and are planning different activities. And I think that now that we know ahead of time, not like last year, we can approach it with a little bit, with a little bit better planning to make sure that we get some stuff together that kids feel good about.
Yeah, that's great. I know it. You know what? I didn't think about that, junior and senior prom. And listen, once you think people might want to come back, students might want to come back later. We do for reunions.
Right.
Maybe it's the reunion that becomes, I was going to say, nobody wants to come back after they're already off to college or other things in life, but who knows? Maybe they would come back for instead of waiting till the 10-year reunion, maybe students, it'll be the 2-year reunion, and you come back and see all your friends and do that prom that you might have missed. But anything else to add that you've been talking about with senior activities or graduation? Anything else to add at all about this?
Well, just to make our seniors know that we are still there with them, with their post-secondary opportunities and decisions that they are making. The counselors are definitely going to be right there walking them through those acceptance letters and those financial aid awards and all that wonderful stuff that comes with moving on to the next level, training programs and all those things. So our counselors are still there. They're working hard with them. And we know with the pandemic, there may be some family changes, sometimes the loss of a job and things of that nature. And school counselors are there to help families connect with those universities.
And I think that's really important distinction to make, because my seniors they're starting to hear back from colleges they've applied to, or they're, it's that time of the year where they're thinking about college and what's happening next year. And for those students, there's a sense of excitement about what comes next. I worry the most about my babies that don't know what they're doing next year. And so I think just paying a special attention to helping the students who don't know exactly where they're heading next year, to have them, something to look forward to and to get them connected to whatever's their next step is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I am very happy to hear the amount of support and the care being provided. Not that I even doubted that for a second, but to hear the specific examples today, to talk to both of you who are entrenched in supporting high school students, I really thank you. And thank you to all of our high school, all of our high school principals, all of our high school teachers, families. I know that there have been so many challenges being faced this year, but as you heard, we've got staff on board. They are trying their best to bring students back into a safe and yet exciting high school environment. And so thank you for joining us today. I hope this was helpful to you. Students and families and everybody watching this, our high school, we are here for you, and your success is very important to us. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for joining us on Your School Channel, Cable 2.